Alrighty, can you guys hear me? Alrighty, it's good to be here, and I am glad to speak about my past life and what I have become now to. So give me one moment. Alright, well, for anybody that doesn't know me fully, my name is Benjamin John Thompson. I am 27 years old, and I am from Illinois. I grew up in a small town. I want to say the population is maybe 80 people now, but when I grew up in it, it was probably about 120 people. There's like 2 bars in town and a sand plant facility and a post office. So super small. We actually had a church there in town, but we never went to that church growing up. But I did grow up going to a Baptist church when I was young. I don't know if we went to I was younger, and, I stopped going to church when I was 10 or 11, because that's when I, started doing things my way, not listening to my parents and whatnot. But, like I said, I grew up in a Baptist church, and things were good, I was, knew God when I was young and tried living the right way, but, sometimes Satan decides to get in our life and take things in a different way. So, but so that's that. And then, so I want to talk about my favorite verse, alrighty, which is Matthew 19, verse 26, but I'm going to read 25 and 26. So Matthew 19:25 says, "When his disciples heard it, they were greatly astonished, saying, 'Who then can be saved?' But Jesus looked at them and said to them, 'With men this is impossible, but with God all things are possible.'" And I got this little book here that my dad and stepmom sent me out. It's like a little devotional book. It says, "For we walk by faith, not by sight," 2 Corinthians 5:7. And, ever since I've gotten it out here every Sunday, I take notes from Frank's sermons and whatnot. And, it's good to look back on to, help me and whatnot. So, but anyways, with the page that I wrote my testimony on, I wrote it on the one that says, with God, all things are possible. So I thought that was neat to use for my testimony. So I don't know if anybody remembers, but Frank had mentioned it when I first got out here, that I was in jail before I came out here. I did 9 months in jail and learned my lesson. I don't want to ever go back to that. It's not fun. It's just not the lifestyle I want to live. But so anyways, that goes into how I heard about this program out here. So I had about, 2 weeks left, maybe 3 weeks. And, I was talking to my mom, we were having video visits and stuff. In our county back home, we can't have in-person visits. We got to do it over a kiosk. It's kind of boring, it kind of sucks, but, hey, at least I got to see them. I got to see my daughter and any other family that wanted to have a video with me. But anyways, so we were talking, and, she was telling me she's got this friend back home. Actually, the friend that brought me out here with my mother. We drove all the way out here, and he was nice enough to drive me out here. And he has connections in, I think, North Dakota and Texas for the oil field. And, so that was kind of an option we were talking about. And eventually, it just wasn't going to work out because my license got suspended while I was in jail due to child support payments and everything else. So, me not having a license, it wasn't going to work out. But so anyways, I don't really know how my mom's going to feel about this, calling her out, but she was seeing a therapist. She had went through a divorce, and then, with me and my addiction, she just had all these problems built up. And so anyway, she went and seen this therapist, and I want to say 2 days later, they were talking about everything, and she was talking about me and, trying to find a place for me to go, and her therapist actually had, I want to say it was her niece that had come out to this program. I talked to Frank about it, but he can't really remember him. I don't know if he was from Illinois, because I think I'm the first one from Illinois. If that's true or not, I'm not sure. But anyways, it's a God thing because, if my mom didn't go see a therapist, she would have never found out about this place and I would have never been out here. So it's awesome. I'm glad I got the opportunity to come out here and learn so much from it. So I was in my addiction for about 6 years. It was rough. It was not fun. I thought it was fun at the time, but now where I'm at in life, I look back and I'm like, yeah, that's not worth it at all. And so anyways, I got a fun fact for today. I was kind of debating on when to do my testimony, and I was like, well, you know what? Today marks my 1 year being out here, so I'm going to do my testimony on my 1 year. Unfortunately, we can't leave on our 1 year until that Sunday, so, that's okay, though. I'm glad to stay another, I think, 4 days, so the more the merrier. Last year, August 10th, I was grateful, and I got saved. I got saved out here. I accepted Jesus Christ into my heart. A week later, that next week, on that Sunday, I was baptized. And then as of today, I have 649 days sober, 1 year, 9 months, and 11 days. And I've never felt any better. I never thought I was going to make it this far. And it's great. And as John Clark says, I'm clean and serene now. So thank you, John, for that. So where I was at in my addiction, I was in a very dark place. Out of the 6 years, I want to say I was probably getting high every day, not for the full 6 years, I was kind of slowing down, trying to get sober. I went to a 30-day rehab within the 6 years, and I got out 2 days later, I started getting high again. If you guys are curious what I was on meth and cocaine. So yeah, not too good. And like I said, I was in a very dark place. I was not caring. I wasn't, focusing on God at all. I was only talking to God when I was in certain situations where I was, crying out for help, and that's, you can't do that. You gotta, like Frank says, you gotta be in your word every day. You gotta read your Bible, or, be in your word every day and go to church every Sunday. And if you're not doing that, you have more of a chance that you're just gonna fail. And I was not following God's path or plan that he had for me because I was trying to do it my way. And with that, I thought, with me believing in God, my whole life, I've always been a believer ever since I was little, and I always thought, I was a Christian. Well, I dated this girl years ago, and she was super sweet. She was a Christian. I think she was. I'm pretty sure she was. And she'd asked me, when we started talking, she's like, well, are you a Christian? And of course I told her, yeah, I'm a Christian. Well, I didn't know until I got out here and started talking to Frank that you're not a Christian until you're saved. So that was, something to take in and really realize that it's not true until you believe and get saved. What else do we got here? So I want to talk about, I have a 6-year-old daughter back home. Her name is Amelia, and she's the best thing in my life. Out of the 6 years, I'm going to be honest and say I was maybe only in her life, half them years, and, my addiction was getting in the way. I just wasn't putting my effort or my, part of being a father, I wasn't putting that first, so I was putting everything else first before her. And, I'm sorry that I did that to her, and, hopefully I can make it up to her when I go back home, and, hopefully when she grows up, she can realize that I do love her and care about her, and, I've changed my life for her. So I was doing some work this last week for Mark and Lori, and we had went to lunch, and Lori had actually asked me, what's the best thing about this program, and what's the maybe worst thing or hardest thing. And so the best thing is, getting closer to God, learning how to be a child of God, finding Him and just, living that lifestyle that we all need to live, or that I need to live. The hardest thing, I would say, is probably being away from my family, my daughter, etc. It's very hard. But I'm, like I said, I did 9 months in jail before I came out here, so it's a little easier, I'm kind of used to it, but it's still hard. I can't say I'm really, miss my friends because, I really only got like 2 good friends back home. And all the other friends I had before that I thought were friends, were not friends. They were either getting me in trouble, leading me the wrong way, and just not good, not good. And the friends I got out here now are probably the best friends I could ever have, So I'm never gonna forget about my friends out here and all these people out here, friends and, church family. It's a great place. And like I said earlier, I will be going back home, but I will come out and visit after I get settled, hopefully get a job as soon as possible. But, I've been talking to Frank. If I can't get it figured out at home with a job and, if stuff just isn't going right, I don't want to take the risk to try to keep trying something that's not working and then end up back in, my dark place. So, yeah, I'll definitely make time to come back out here. The last thing, I'd like to give a huge thanks to God for just changing my life, coming into, me accepting Him into my life and everything else. And of course to Frank and Karen for running this program, starting it. It's such a blessing to, have this. And, if there's anybody else out there that needs help or anything, this is the place to be. It's definitely worth it. Josh and Holly, I don't know if you guys are watching, but big thanks to you guys. Amanda and Glenn, thank you for everything you guys have done. And John Clark, man, I know we've butted heads a few times, and I'm sorry about that, man, but I love you as a brother, man. I won't forget you. You've been good, you've taught me a lot, and, I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for everybody here. One other thing I forgot, I thought I had it written down. Let me check here real quick. But I know TJ's watching. I made sure. I don't know if he's still watching or not. He said, if the kids kind of get in the way, he's going to have to watch later. But I want to give a big thanks to TJ because, he gave me a lot of motivation to get through this program. He's got a wife and kids back home. And, I'm not married back home, but I got a kid back home, a daughter back home. And, he gave me a lot of motivation to get through this program. There was a few times I wanted to leave, but I thought about it and I'm like, nah, you just need to stick it out because it's gonna be better if you stick it out and finish it, than leave and just realize this. So I've always been the type to try to finish what I've started, and yeah, that's about all I got. Thank you for listening. Hope you guys enjoyed.
Y'all pray for him. We know how hard it is. The opportunities are going to come. Satan's going to attack. But I think you heard a determination in him, I believe, that's going to help him to win and to not go back. And TJ, who is doing very well over in Gillette, and gave him encouragement. So I think that's probably one of the main reasons he's still here too, because he was wanting to leave pretty bad early on. I was pretty hard on him. I'm hard on every one of them if they're butting heads with me, because they just can't win. They got to lose. Jesus is right, and I'm gonna be on his side. And so we just work toward the goal of the prize, and I truly believe I know he found the prize. And let's just pray that he's able to maintain this pattern and to continue to win, be a great father, great provider, and that God blesses him, helps him to reach others there, and that I don't even want to pass through Illinois, to be honest with you. But I could say some things that I ain't spent much time there, but I hadn't got much of a good opinion. But you know what? They need somebody to preach Jesus to that bunch, I'll be honest with you. So, and I think God's going to give him the opportunity to do that. Thank you, Ben, for your testimony. Thank you for being here tonight. We want to see you on Sunday if you are looking for a place to worship, and we're going to have a good time together. We're having really good crowds, and so you better come early and pick your seat, huh? Yeah. So anyway, thank you for being here. We'll see you next time we meet.